This image is a representation of Saint Juan Diego. I'll say a little bit about him in a moment, but I'm going to begin by saying a little bit more about another topic first that's related to especially the image that he received from the Blessed Virgin Mary. So Juan Diego, you can see a bit of that image right here. That term that I want us to talk about here for a moment is enculturation. Enculturation, maybe the shortest definition would be the bringing of Christianity to a culture and the bringing of a culture to Christianity. It's distinct from another word that I'm going to use in a moment, which is syncretism. Syncretism would be the blending of two religions into something new and different than either of the previous religious traditions that preceded. And so I'll try to explain what the difference is between those here in the next slide. So imagine, it's best to start with an example. Let's imagine we've got an ancient sailor who's hoping to gain divine favor before he boards his ship for a voyage. That's this little guy. And he's going to be a supplicant, right? He's going to pray to some deity. Well, in his own society, they have a religion, let's say. Let's call it like ancient Greek society, just because I can name some of the deities in that one. So ancient pagan religion, right? They've got a bunch of gods. All of them have different jobs. So you have like Zeus, who's like in charge of stuff. But most importantly for our sailor, there's another deity called Poseidon. I think I've spelled it correctly. In any case, our sailor in his pre-Christian state says, okay, I'm going to pray to Poseidon, because that's the god who's out there whose job it is to help sailors get across the sea safely. Well, then let's say a Christian shows up and says, well, actually, that's not the way that the world works. There's really only one deity, right? And that's the only thing that's at the top of the ladder, so to speak, here. And then there are things that you can pray to, right? Ask for their intercession, but those are called saints, right? They're not gods. They're human beings who had interests of their own, right? And we pray to them to God, right? So, pray for them to intercede on our behalf to God. That's the best way to say it. And in fact, in the Christian tradition today, at least, we have a saint named Elmo, right? His job, not our little Sesame Street guy. Saint Elmo, was a patron saint of sailors. Right? I bet he was a sailor. I'm not sure. But it wouldn't be surprising, right? He cares about sailing. Okay. So we go to this sailor and we tell him, you shouldn't be praying to this other deity. You should be praying to Saint Elmo. And Saint Elmo, right, will in turn intercede to God on your behalf for safe travel. And you'll note, though, you can say also to this individual, right, that Saint Elmo has many of the same characteristics as Poseidon has. Right, that there's sort of a correspondence or a correlation that can be had between these things. And you can sort of transfer some of those characteristics over to St. Elmo, even though you have to recognize that it's not actually, St. Elmo's not a god in the way that you think Poseidon is. So from here, if our sailor supplicant at the bottom decides, oh, you're right, I should probably not pray to these other gods. I should pray through St. Elmo, so to speak, for his intercession, from the one true God, then what that person has accomplished, and the missionary as well, is what we would call enculturation. On the other hand, if that sailor supplicant said, well, no, I think there's more than one God, like, I'm just going to rename Poseidon Elmo even, right? And I'm just going to pray to Poseidon under this new name of Elmo. Well, that thing instead, you can see my green and my red, right? If they did the thing on the right here, then that is what I would describe as syncretism, right? They still think of Elmo as just another god now, instead of as one of God's creatures and God's servants, the saints. So the effort, enculturation and syncretism can look very similar, and that's the difficult thing here. It's a difficult process. What we see in Juan Diego's life is what is understood today to be a clear example of a proper enculturation of the faith in ancient Aztec, early modern Aztec society. So Juan was born in 1474, a member of the Chichimeca people in the region of Mexico City today, prior to the arrival of European Christians in the Americas. Right? He was late to the game in his conversion. Whatever. He converted at the age of 50 to Christianity from a Franciscan, at the hands of a Franciscan missionary. In his case, right, I mean, we see that there were previous examples of individuals who tried to raise up indigenous experiences and to recognize like the dignity of indigenous peoples, even if they weren't Christians. These are people like Junipero Serra and Bartolomé de las Casas. They are sort of involved in that enculturation kind of work. But in Juan's case, this enculturation came sort of more directly from the source. The Virgin Mary, right, directly appears to Juan in a particular form, right? She's sort of a mixed race or indigenous style figure when she appears to him, supported by an angel that bears the features of some of the indigenous deities. That's not the only thing about the figure. I'll say a little bit more about her appearance in a moment. So Mary asks Juan to build a shrine to her on the location, the Tepeyac Hill in Mexico City. And she provides a demonstration to Juan's bishop of the authenticity of her vision, of this vision that he's had, by giving this image of her on his mantle. So that mantle is now known as the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Juan, for his part, spent the rest of his life as a hermit right near the site, and he served the pilgrims who came to express their devotion to Mary there. You can see the image on display here in Mexico City, probably. I wouldn't be surprised, I'm not sure. And I want to say a couple more things about the features that it has, right? It's an indigenous or brown-skinned version of Mary with symbols from indigenous religion. She's on clouds, right? This was a symbol within indigenous religions at the time of a divine messenger. She has the sun god of the Aztec people sort of illuminating from behind her, but she eclipses it, right? That she supersedes it, or that she's better than that Aztec sun god. There's a 4-petaled jasmine flower in the image that represents the Aztecs' highest deity, Ometotl, something like that. But this then is transformed in this image into a reference to the incarnation, right? Instead of bearing some other foreign deity, she bears Christ, the true Son of God. It also includes a reference with the moon at the bottom to a Aztec fertility god, right? So she is the true bearer of the Son of God, right? She is the truly fruitful one, maybe we could say. And these two then, they're all transforming the symbols of these indigenous religious traditions and showing their consonance in the way that they support and point toward, even you could say, the truths of Christianity. This is what makes it enculturation and not syncretism. So within the image, let's say a little bit more about Juan. Like, what can we gain from his life before I say more about the symbols that are on the image right here? Juan, as I said, converted relatively late in his life. Nevertheless, God used him as an instrument in his place and time to insist that the church see the value of indigenous peoples and even of components of their religious culture. And so for us today, what we can draw from that is that no matter how late we come to or commit ourselves to God in our own lives, we can recommit ourselves even more deeply, even later on in our lives. We always have to remember that God has a mission for us. And just like Juan had a mission to his people, and even to his bishop, even you could say in a sense, there's somebody that God is calling us into mission with, right? That he has something that he wants for us, and he wants us to do in our world today. So within this image, though, that our artist Aaron Wee has composed, you'll see a couple of things at least. We've got, first of all, this red rose, right? These are symbols, obviously, of his devotion to Mary, but also a sign of God's faithfulness to Juan, right? Who he was given these flowers miraculously out of season by Mary, and as a sign to his bishop that this is an authentic vision. Then we also see a symbol of his own membership in his Chichimeca people from India. This is the turquoise eagle. His name means eagle, right? Juan's indigenous name means eagle. And so this particular piece of art then is in a style of indigenous art from that region, which again is another way to sort of speak about the enculturation of Christianity in and for that people, that he can be authentically indigenous and authentically Christian. And the last thing that I'll mention is that there's a number of books out there about Juan aimed at various ages, right? You can find young children's books about Juan Diego, older children's books, and then the last example here is actually has a new introduction here. It says by Archbishop Jose Gomez. He is now the president of the USCCB here in the United States. So that one, I'm sure, is a good one. Thank you.